It begins on a night the city forgets itself and turns to water. Storm drains talk to the moon. Sycamore leaves slap wetly against brownstone glass. On the top step of a limestone townhouse in Los Angeles' historic Westlake, where the streetlights smear gold over rain-slick sidewalks, a wicker laundry basket waits beneath a brass lion's head knocker. Inside the basket lies a baby. He is dark-skinned and tiny, wrapped in a thrift store cardigan the color of overripe pears. His breath fogs the air, small and astonished. In his fist, a scrap of ribbon and a button shaped like a star. A folded note rests against his stomach, weighted by a tin music box no larger than a biscuit. Someone has inked words on the box's underside in swaying hand. Sing him the dawn song when he's afraid. At 1:14 a.m. Alexander Reed comes home to paperwork. He arrives with the smell of wet wool in his sleeves and the skyscraper hush still clinging to the collar of his charcoal coat. Billionaire by accident and habit, Alexander wears loneliness the way other men wear wristwatches. He is 49 and efficient, in that particular way driven men become when they have lived too long without anyone to interrupt them. His driver pulls away. Rain drums its small insistences over the hooded steps. Alexander turns the key, frowns, and only then hears it. Not crying, exactly, but a small, exhausted sound like a bird calling from inside a book. He looks down. The baby opens his eyes, as if the sound of a key is a sunrise. For a heartbeat, the night has the indecent intimacy of a chapel into which a stranger has wandered. Alexander says nothing. A lifetime of decisions crowds his throat. Schedules, acquisitions, exit strategies, and none apply to this. He kneels. His knees are wet. He fingers the note. Please keep him safe. His name is Gabriel. I have no one. Below the scrawl, a line written as carefully as a prayer. The song will know what to do. He turns the music box over and reads the inscription again. Somewhere in his chest, a long quiet door opens on its hinges and the smell of childhood escapes. Mothballs, hallways, his mother humming while steam-fogged bathroom mirrors. Who left you here? Alexander murmurs. The baby answers by gripping his finger with impossible gravity. A rational man would call the police, the agency, the number scrawled on the pamphlets in waiting rooms. Alexander has always believed that order is love in a more reliable suit. But water is running from Gabriel's eyelids into his ears. The wind comes around the corner with a razored edge. Alexander's hand moves before the rest of him catches up. He lifts the basket. It weighs less than a promise. Inside, the foyer breathes heat. A grandfather clock rearranges the room with a chime so dignified it seems embarrassed to be heard. Alexander sets the basket on an antique bench. His house, the sort that can afford brand-new antiques, stares back at him with immaculate indifference. A staircase curving into edited darkness, a hallway trimmed in the idea of heritage, mirrors that always return the same man. Gabriel, Alexander says, trying the name on his mouth as if it were a language he studied long ago and still remembers the sound of. You're safe. You're safe tonight. He turns the music box's tiny key. The tune is simple, childish, nearly. 3 notes like footfalls. 5 like a path that knows its way home. He has never heard it, and yet the melody finds the exact shelf in his memory where lost things are supposed to be returned. He hums along without meaning to, and the baby's fists uncurl. The house, which has never once exhaled in Alexander's presence, lets something go. He carries the basket upstairs and into a guest room the size of apartments, lays a towel on the coverlet, and learns the first law of midnight. Tenderness is faster than the internet. He warms milk. He wipes rain from tiny temples. He arranges pillows as if inventing a nest, embarrassed by how much of himself he's willing to unlearn to do it right. The baby drinks and half smiles and sleeps like someone who believes in people. At the window, the storm begins to apologize to the city. Alexander watches the rain spend itself like old money and hears the tune again inside him, as if the music box merely opened a drawer. He hums the last line once more for a sleeping stranger and for a version of himself who might yet be possible. Downstairs, on the bench in the foyer, the brass lion listens to the quiet and decides not to roar. By morning the world puts on its suit. The storm pushes offshore. Espresso steam leans against the kitchen's chilly competence. On Alexander's phone, calendars wake like gulls. Board, attorneys, a ribbon cutting he promised the mayor's office months ago. A news alert slides into his attention. A developer across town bulldozed a homeless encampment before dawn. The comments section is an X-ray of a city's arguments. On the kitchen island sits a basket, wrapped in a bath sheet. A tiny hand escapes the terry cloth like a plant reaching. The music box rests beside an unused crystal fruit bowl. The agency number takes 3 rings. The woman's voice is kind and practiced. She asks questions that carry decades of other babies in their syllables. Alexander answers. He's honest where he can be, careful where he must, then says it. Can you give me an hour? Silence opens like a door he shouldn't have opened. The woman does not scold him. You're not the first, she says gently. 1 hour. He ends the call and stares at his phone as if obedience were a shape he could hold. The house has opinions he refuses to hear. He makes a bottle with hands that can sign documents humans will organize their lives around. Gabriel blinks awake into a new world. In the first 10 seconds of staring at a billionaire, he seems unimpressed. He yawns like an old man who's seen worse. Alexander laughs once, short, surprised. What love asks in the morning, he says, is inconvenient. He wants to be wise. He wants to be right. He wants to find the child's mother and solve this as if love were a board game you win by collecting all the correct rectangles. Instead, he sits in a kitchen so clean it squeaks and sings a tune he didn't know yesterday. The baby drinks and listens the way babies listen with their whole bodies. He scrolls between calls and lullaby and sees an email from procurement titled In the Grammar of Money. Parcel 781, clearance completed. He knows that parcel. He walked it last fall under a freeway viaduct and met a woman who kept a plastic flamingo beside her tent. Because, she said, a person with a flamingo clearly lives somewhere. He closed that deal. He signs things for a living. It occurs to him now that a signature is sometimes a door closing with a baby on the wrong side. When the hour ends, he does not call back. He calls his attorney instead. A man whose mind can stack statutes into skyscrapers explains guardianship like a weather report. What must be declared? Who must be found? How much time the law will allow one stranger to love another under a state's supervision? You cannot adopt an unknown child off your stoop, the attorney says, mildly apologetic. There are lanes. But I can drive beside him a while, Alexander says. You can drive beside him, the attorney agrees. Alexander calls the agency back and says the new, careful word, temporary. He means for the hour, for the day, for as long as a court allows, for however long it takes to learn whether doorsteps are fate or mistakes. A social worker arrives with a folder and eyes like weathered oak. She reads his house the way wolves read a treeline. She inspects the crib a delivery service magicked into existence within an hour like a conjurer. Alexander's mistake. She points to the receipt on the nightstand. Returnable, I see. She smiles without judgment, which is worse. You're doing a kindness, she says evenly. Kindness is not a plan. She checks boxes anyway. What about his mother? Alexander asks. She'll have a window to come forward, the social worker says. If she doesn't, we look for family. If none, we look for placement. Alexander looks at Gabriel's fingers. Surprisingly decisive fingers for a person who cannot yet roll over. And if none of that works, then the world asks for something from someone, she says. Sometimes the right person hears the question. He doesn't ask what question. He hears it anyway. When she leaves, the house is an animal that has decided to allow a guest. The music box sits on the mantel beneath a painting of a ship at the very moment the wind decides to change its mind. On the box's underside, the words wait for the next hand to turn them over. The song will know what to do. That night, when city lights flicker through the high windows like migrating spirits, Alexander learns how to warm a bath to skin's exact temperature, how to answer a midnight cry with a body instead of a calendar, how to hum a melody until a house unlearns its loneliness. He sleeps in a chair beside a crib. Outside, garbage trucks kneel at the curb like patient, enormous horses. Inside, A man who can buy most things surrenders to a tune he cannot own. He does not know now that the hour he asked for will become a year of supervised affection, that some affections can be supervised and remain affections anyway, that law and love can sometimes be neighbors if you let them. He does not know how long any of this will be allowed. He knows only that, for tonight, he is singing a stranger safe through the dark. A year holds 1,000 minutes that do not make the news. The world outside learns and forgets its crises. Inside the townhouse, the clock learns new duties. The kitchen tile finds a second vocation as a crawling school. A billionaire discovers that some meetings exist only so you will have a reason to say no. The music box graduates from emergency to ritual. The house develops opinions about bedtime. The agency comes and goes with gentleness and clipboards. The social worker reads stories when paperwork is finished. You know, she says one evening, we usually caution foster parents about language. Forever is a dangerous word. She taps a page where a bear finds its cave. But some words mean themselves whether we say them or not. Alexander nods. He has learned to make soup. He has learned not to ask where kindness belongs in a budget. He has learned to nap like a thief. He does not say the word forever out loud, but sometimes he closes his eyes while stirring soup and says it to the ceiling. He takes Gabriel to the park on Saturdays before the sun remembers to be unkind. Joggers nod at the sight of a man with a stroller who never used to stop. He becomes the sort of person the barista recognizes by the sound of his tired laugh. He is ridiculous about hats. He sings. That is the most surprising part of the year. He sings in the car, in the hallway, in a walk-in closet while searching for a tie that looks less like armor. He sings the dawn song in the emergency room after a 2 a.m. fever, and the nurse says, "Oh honey, we like that one," and sings along while the 4-bag learns its slow lesson. He asks the social worker about the mother every time she visits. "No one has come forward," she says in month 4. "We posted, we searched. We asked quietly in places people hide." She looks at Gabriel's deepening dimples. Someone loved him enough to bring him to a door. Or to leave him, Alexander says. Both can be true, she says, because she has seen enough nights to know how mornings work. In month 7, a relative appears. A cousin who saw a post and a baby's picture that looks like her brother's son. There are interviews. There are forms. There is the mathematics of grief and competence the state must perform. Alexander sits on a bench in a government hallway with his hands folded like a congregation of one, and hums to himself so he doesn't bleed on the floor. If the match is real, the lawyer reminds gently, it is in the child's best interest. What if his best interest is the person who learned his song? Alexander asks, and the lawyer has no statute to cite for that and looks sorry. For a week the house does not sleep. The crib stands there like a stanza of a poem whose last line refuses to be written. Alexander does not sing. He cannot. On the 8th day, the doorbell rings. The cousin is trembling but determined. A young woman with good shoes and eyes that belong to someone who has survived hard rooms. Her name is Keisha. She holds the baby with that helpless competence you learn doing sacred, unpaid work. He looks like my brother, she says, half apologizing to a stranger for claiming kin. Alexander says, he looks like someone particular. And Keisha nods because yes, that is always it. They sit in the foyer on the bench beneath the brass lion and talk without small talk. Keisha's story unspools in a tone that refuses melodrama. A mother who loves and loses and hides and hopes. A city that applauds sometimes and looks away more often. The way courage can live in a person's pocket in the form of a bus pass and a granola bar. She fingers the music box absent-mindedly, then pauses. Our grandma sang something like that, she says, startled by the memory surfacing under her feet. My cousin said the aunties kept a song for midnight babies. She laughs. You ever notice how family is made of music and recipes? They share a sad, grateful smile. The agency moves the world the way agencies do. Dutifully, with a faith that paperwork is one of the ways a country can keep its promises. A plan is made that is not what Alexander wanted and not what his grief protests and maybe what a village would counsel if a village sat in courtrooms. On the morning Gabriel leaves, Alexander carries the basket. Yes, the same basket he kept against the day he hoped would never come. Down the stairs he climbed the night the rain forgot the city. He places the music box in Keisha's hands. "Please," he says, finding the limits of his voice. "Please keep it near him." Keisha nods with the solemnity of a person receiving an heirloom she didn't know belonged to her. In the doorway, Alexander leans forward. He kisses Gabriel's forehead with care a surgeon would envy. He is not a man given to theatrics. He has learned the quiet gesture is usually the brave one. "Gabriel," he whispers, "you are wanted." The door closes with the complicated sound doors make when they do their jobs against the will of a human heart. The house listens to the quiet it used to love and decides it doesn't like it anymore. Alexander stands in a foyer that knows his gait and does not know what to do with the way his steps don't come. He goes upstairs and sits in a chair beside an empty crib. He is not a man who cries often. He cries once for a long time. Outside, life resumes the manners of noon. A delivery person rings the bell with cheerful ignorance of holy spaces. The clock chimes. Calendars burn their small bonfires on his phone. Somewhere in the city, a cousin with good shoes hums a song she didn't expect to know, and a baby sleeps through a stoplight. Time goes to work. Alexander goes with it, carrying in his chest a melody that refuses to be evicted. 20 years are a long echo if you stand in the right place. They pass in dockets and dinners. Alexander sells a division because Prophet whispered something unkind about his name in a newspaper. He opens a shelter because a woman outside a bulldozed camp gave him a look that carried a sentence. "You have hands? Use them." He cuts a ribbon wearing a suit that costs less than the check behind it, and a volunteer in a red scarf hugs him with the careless sincerity of people who have no time for pretense. His hair goes saltier. The house gets kinder, teaching itself the trick of holding laughter again with the toddlers who come on Saturdays for music hour at Voices at Dawn. The community center he funds because a social worker once told him some promises must be turned into rooms with doors and light switches. He keeps the music box on the mantle, the only thing he did not give the day he gave everything else away. He did not hoard it. He preserved a candle. Every night he winds the key exactly once, as if reminding the house how the air is supposed to feel. He could have found the boy, perhaps, if he had permitted money to do what money does. He chose not to hire a private investigator. "Let love decide its own map," he told the lawyer, who looked as if he would like to litigate the sentence, and then nodded as citizens nod at altars they do not understand but respect. He does not say Gabriel's name out loud, except when a newborn at the shelter needs something sung into their ribs and he finds, to his own embarrassment and joy, that he has memorized the act of being brave in lullaby form. Once, on a June afternoon, he sits on the townhouse steps eating a peach over the newspaper like a man in a painting who lacks a plot. A bicyclist passes, whistling the first 4 notes of a tune Alexander would recognize if he were dead. He looks up, startled, and the bicyclist is already a block away, whistling the sound a road makes when it goes home. Another time he dreams of a doorbell that rings and rings and rings. He opens it to find the basket returned, empty except for a folded note that reads, "Thank you for holding the beginning. We took it from here." He wakes laughing and then crying and then laughing again because both are the right answer. He has dated carefully and badly. He has said no to marriages he could have purchased and yes to friendships that cost him everything except money. He has turned away from work at the moment work would have swallowed him and has turned toward kitchens where soup is teaching a room to forgive itself. If you ask him late at night whether he believes in miracles, he will tell you he believes in habits. If you ask the same question while he is winding a tin key, he will shrug and say, "I believe in songs." He does not know that the city has been translating all this into a path that leads back to his doorstep. He does not know that a young man with a backpack patched with band logos and a spiral notebook full of other people's names and phone numbers is standing outside a foster home that never quite fit, humming the dawn song without knowing its name, and that he hums it exactly when he is afraid because fear learned to back up a step every time he did. He does not know that the young man's name is the same as it was the night a note asked a stranger to love him temporarily and a stranger obeyed. He does not know that Gabriel is on a bus at this very minute with a paper in his pocket from a lab that says he is a perfect match for a girl named Eliza Reed, Alexander's niece, who has been sleeping too much and losing weight and being very brave about words like transplant. He does not know that Gabriel read the story the paper told about the foundation, recognized a face he once saw only in a doorway's rain, and said to the bus driver, "Can you let me off at the old houses with the lions on the steps?" The driver said, "You got it, kid." Because cities answer prayers without meaning to. The doorbell rings at exactly the time it did 20 years ago. Not because clocks are mystical, but because people are. The hand learns to turn a key in a way that fits the space between the second and the third chime. The foot learns where to step so the stair doesn't squeak. The heart learns what hour it is most itself. Alexander opens the door expecting a courier because money makes you expect transactions at all hours. He finds a young black man with rain in his curls and a notebook in his jacket pocket and a music box in his hand. For 2 seconds the world refuses to recalculate. It holds both nights at once. The same porch light halos a different head. The same rain makes separate declarations. The same house takes a breath it has not learned how to use yet. "Mr. Reed?" the young man asks, and the voice is not a baby's voice, obviously, but it keeps an echo of the softness that once wrapped a fist around Alexander's finger. "Yes," Alexander says, and the word has all its letters for once. "I'm Gabriel," he says, and both of them lean against the invisible wall that sentence makes in the air. He holds up the music box. "This belongs to you," he says, and then, qualifying with the wisdom of the poor, "And to me, both." Alexander stares. His throat is a fist. He nods and reaches and then cannot because if he touches the thing the room will tilt and he will fall into a year he barely survived. "I need to ask you something," Gabriel says, businesslike now, because the requirement of the hour refuses reverie. "Is Eliza Reed your niece?" Alexander blinks. "Yes," he says. "How do you?" Gabriel unfolds a paper with such care the rain seems to wait for him. "I swabbed at a drive outside a grocery store because the lady with the clipboard said I looked like a match for somebody. I got the call this morning." He taps the lab heading with his thumb, as if calling to a horse. "They said if we can get the consent and—" He falters for the first time. "They said sometimes it's complicated with family." The foyer breathes. The brass lion does not know whether to roar or purr. "She's 20, Gabriel says. The nice doctor said perfect like he meant it. Like that word is a room the size of a planet and our names fit on the door. Alexander hears none of the world that is not this doorstep. "You're a match for Eliza," he repeats. In the tone of a person reading a sentence he has rehearsed in dreams and never dared request from daylight. "I'm here to help," Gabriel says. "If you want me to. If she wants me to." And then, because the universe respects craft cues, the phone in Alexander's pocket vibrates. He answers like a man in a movie he doesn't believe in, murmurs a hello that sounds like a request for instructions, and hears his sister's voice folded in static. "Alex, we're at St. Gabriel's. It's not good. They want to move faster than they said. Can you come?" He looks at the young man on his doorstep who carries an old tin hymn and a lab result like a sacrament. "Come with me," he says, because some verbs are orders and invitations at once. They run. The rain approves. St. Gabriel's Hospital hums with machines that believe in numbers more than prayers. Alexander Reed stands at the foot of a bed where his niece, Eliza, lies pale and diminished. Monitors blink in green syllables, announcing each fragile breath as if to remind the world that she is not gone yet. Beside him, Gabriel leans against the wall, damp hoodie pressed to his shoulders. The young man who had appeared at Alexander's doorstep hours ago now looks like someone pulled forward by destiny faster than his legs can move. The doctor's words linger in the air. "If we don't secure a donor in the next 48 hours. A sentence that bleeds into silence, because no professional dares to finish it in front of a child. Alexander feels the old part of himself rising. The part that negotiates, that sues, that donates 7 figures for naming rights. What can I fund? What trial? Which surgeon do I fly in? His voice is iron wrapped in silk, frantic for leverage. But the head physician shakes his head. Money won't buy time, Mr. Reed. A match will. Gabriel shifts. He pulls the folded paper from his pocket again, hands trembling but voice steady. I'm the match. I'm her match. Silence again, but this time holy. The words hang like a bell that refuses to stop ringing. Alexander looks at him, at the boy he once held for a night and then lost for decades. You'd give for her? His throat is sand. Gabriel meets his gaze, no bravado, only clarity. She's family. So are you. Even if you didn't mean to be. I think maybe this is why I was brought back. The doctor frowns, cautious. There are tests to confirm, procedures, consent is complicated. He's not a registered relative. And here comes the old world again. Forms, signatures, legal knots. Alexander feels the weight of bureaucracy press against his ribs. For the first time in years, he feels truly powerless. He has built towers, bought influence, reshaped skylines, and yet all of it now feels like paper when a child's life is burning down. He steps into the corridor alone. Rain smears the windows. He leans his forehead against cold glass and whispers, "Why me? Why this? I already failed him once. I let him go. How can I be trusted now?" The corridor does not answer. But down the hall, faint as a memory, he hears it. The tinny chime of the dawn song. Gabriel has opened the music box at Eliza's bedside. Its notes thread through linoleum and fluorescent hum like a ghost reminding him. Love is not logical. Love is what you do when nothing else works. Alexander closes his eyes. For the first time in decades, he prays, not with words, but with surrender. Dawn smolders over Los Angeles, pale pink through hospital blinds. Gabriel sits beside Eliza, holding her limp hand. The music box plays softly on the tray table. He hums along, voice cracking but steady. Alexander enters, eyes red, suit jacket discarded like an old skin. He kneels beside Gabriel. "If you're willing, I'll stand with you. I'll sign what needs signing. I'll fight whoever says no. She deserves this chance. And you," his voice breaks, "you deserve to be here. With us." Gabriel looks at him, startled by the words "with us." Something in his face softens, like a door opening to light. The head physician returns, clipboard in hand, still speaking the language of protocols. But then something inexplicable happens. As Gabriel finishes the lullaby, Eliza's hand stirs. At first it could be dismissed, a reflex, a twitch. But then her fingers curl around his. Her lips part. A sound emerges, thin as paper but unmistakable. "Sing again." Alexander gasps as if he has been struck. The doctor drops the clipboard. Nurses rush in. Machines adjust themselves as if listening. Gabriel sings again, louder now, courage filling the notes. The dawn song pours through the room, no longer tinny or faint but warm, resonant, as though unseen walls themselves are humming. Eliza's eyes flutter open. She blinks at the two men leaning over her, one uncle, one stranger not stranger. "Hi," she whispers, and in that single syllable despair breaks like storm clouds. Alexander covers his face with his hands. He sobs, not the careful sob of a man who apologizes for feelings, but the sob of someone reborn. He grasps Gabriel's shoulder. "You did it. You brought her back." Gabriel shakes his head, still humming. "No, love did." The monitors agree, her vitals are climbing. The impossible has occurred. And yet, it feels inevitable, the miracle that waited 20 years for the right moment to bloom. Eliza's recovery is slow but steady. Doctors call it remarkable, unprecedented, and quietly argue over terminology in hallways. But Alexander knows better. It was not charts that saved her. Weeks later, in a hospital garden blooming with jacaranda, Alexander, Eliza, and Gabriel sit together. Eliza's hair has begun to regain its shine. She watches the two men carefully, intuition sharp. "You're my family," she says simply, pointing at them both. Alexander looks at Gabriel. "I failed you once. I let the world take you because I thought rules mattered more than love." He swallows. "But if you'll allow it, I want to make it right. Stay. Be my son. Not on paper only, in truth." Gabriel studies his face. 20 years of longing and loss pass between them in silence. Then he nods. "I was waiting for you to ask." They embrace. For the first time in Alexander's life, the word father feels earned. That evening, they leave the hospital together. The city is washed in golden dusk. As they step onto the street, a warm breeze lifts through the garden and carries the dawn song's echo from the open window above. It is no longer just a lullaby. It is their anthem. 1 year later, the camera of memory opens on a new building downtown. The Dawn House, a community center for children in foster care and families in crisis. Its glass doors are etched with cranes and rising suns. Inside, laughter echoes. Eliza, healthy, teaches piano to kids who never touched keys before. Gabriel runs mentorship programs, guiding teenagers who wander as he once did. Alexander funds it all but spends most of his time sitting on the floor, telling stories, holding babies, learning the names of children no one else bothers to learn. At the dedication ceremony, Alexander speaks, "I once believed legacy was wealth, towers, and signatures, but I was wrong. Legacy is who sings for you when you cannot sing for yourself. Legacy is love that survives the night." The crowd stands in quiet awe. Behind him, Gabriel and Eliza smile, living proof of his words. A paper crane mobile spins in the sunlight by the door. Each delicate wing catches the breeze, glowing like dawn. And so a child left in the rain returned with a miracle that no fortune could buy. A man who once trusted only in reason learned that the greatest equations are written not on paper but in the heart. The dawn song that passed from hand to hand, year to year, carried them through despair into light. It was never just a lullaby. It was the truth whispered through generations. Love is the only wealth that multiplies when given away. Let this story remind us. Legacies are not marble towers or gilded names, but acts of compassion that ripple outward like dawn across a city. When we open our hearts, we invite miracles to walk among us. And in that truth lies the healing of every broken night.